Hey, how you doing, sir?
Hey, Bernard, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, man. How you feeling today? Or tonight, better
I,
yet.
I can't hear you. You're a lot of static.
Hold
You have
on.
a lot of static.
Can you hear me better now?
Oh, perfect, perfect, perfect.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Just getting in the house. I mean, so how are things going out there in Philadelphia?
Oh, everything's coming along. Philadelphia's Philadelphia.
Yeah, I just getting in. So I said, let me go ahead and get this done since I was supposed to do it the other day, but we got a little you ain't went out. So um yeah, I just wanted to say this is Bishop Scott. He hosts a program on Wednesday. It's usually about the state of Black America, so I want to get right into it and talk about the
Okay.
state of Black America right now. So, what do you think is good? What's the state? What do you think?
Well, I think that it's we're at a watch and wait situation. I mean, in terms of the election, but more importantly, in terms of Black America, we have to be cautious about our seemingly enthusiasm in the possibility of a new administration. I mean, I don't see the great need of celebration right now at all. I think that there's no indication that the new administration will think any more of us than the previous one has, if that at all. I mean, if you look at the track record, I mean, in terms of legislation, you keep in mind Joe Biden, unlike Donald Trump, who had no political experience, Joe Biden has 47 plus years of political experience, 30 plus years as a senator and 8 years as a vice president. So he certainly has a record, not a 4 year record, not a 10 year record, not even a 12-year record, but a nearly 50-year record of serving as a public figure. So we do have a record of him. And his record is not as stellar as people would like you to believe, or even as black folk would like themselves to believe. It's almost a delusional view that we have of him, that somehow or another he's transformed into this kumbaya, I love black kind of person. Just because he names his plan for Black America as Lift Every Voice, James Weldon Johnson's poem, the title of his poem that became the Black National Anthem, we call the Black National Anthem, does not mean that he has that in his heart, in his mind. He certainly has indicated he didn't want his children to go to school with jungle bunnies. He didn't. He thinks that poor folk. He always equates poor folk with black folk, as he does over and over again. This is during the campaign trail. We're not talking about the 70s, 80s, and 90s. We're talking about 2020. And you know how he feels about when Ed Gordon asked him point blank, a black journalist, asked him what did he feel about reparations and could he endorse and support reparations. He made it clear that if I put it all, it would have to include Native Americans. So once again, I mean, the jury's out with me. I'll be honest with you, the jury is out with me. If he does become the 46th president of the United States, I don't think that we should be throwing up our hands and saying praise be to God. We now have a champion for our cause. I don't believe that's true. I think the time will tell very, very soon if he is inaugurated in a couple of months. We're going to see very quickly just where he stands. I look at some of his possible cabinet members, the ones he's proposing, and yeah, you have some black faces and women and all of that. But once again, as I said before, on my program, I'm tired of just looking at color. I'm looking at content,
Yeah, and
not
let me
color.
say something. Let me say something to you about some of those people on that supposed transition team. But I just wanted to bring something to you.
Hmm.
For every time this is where the media shows their hypocrisy. Okay, they're gonna tell you that Michigan certified the votes today, but they don't tell you that they're going to have an audit, nor that the reason why they announced supposed transition team thing because they threatened the press. I mean, the administrator of the transition team. They don't tell you all the stuff then, but they tell you, wait a minute, Michigan here, but they don't tell you that Donald Trump today won in the Court of Appeals in Pennsylvania. And I try to tell people, listen. these lower courts mean nothing. When you go up to the Court of Appeals, even tweeted out on Twitter, every time they knock it down, it's to get the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court already has the 5 justices. Clarence Thomas is in one of the swing states. All the 5 conservatives got the swing states. So if the 5 conservatives got the swing states, and 3 of them he appointed, how you think they're gonna vote?
And I'm gonna tell you another thing too, Bernard, which I just learned today, that the Congress, and of course I know the power of the Congress in this process, but the power of the Congress is such that they don't have to accept
the electoral college
votes of the electoral college.
That's right.
So even if he wins an electoral college and they present it to the Congress is not beholden. The Congress is not obligated to embrace and accept and receive that. It's really almost like a recommendation to the Congress in a sense that they propose, they give their vote, whatever that vote will be, and then the Congress decides whether that they will accept that vote, because it's the Congress that makes it official. They announce it on January the 6th. Who is the president of the United States? The Congress does that. And if it comes down to it and they can't come up with an agreement, then what happens is that they take one person from each state, one representative from each state, one senator from each state, and they vote on it. That's
and
the
guess
process.
What? Now let me say something about that. You do know that the Republicans hold 31 of them seats, right?
Right.
Okay, and every state gets 1 vote.
Right.
So, but it goes to show you, Bishop, that a lot of people don't know about the 12th Amendment, constitutional law. No. They don't understand those things. And that's why I'm saying, a lot of people keep saying, first of all, here's another misleading topic. There is no office of the president-elect. And also, a president-elect cannot be projected. They keep on saying projected. I project that the Philadelphia Eagles was going to lose to the Cleveland Browns tomorrow. Yesterday. I could have said that I project. Projection is based on data and analysis, but we don't know, because anything that's contested, and if it's a contested election, I mean, who's the incumbent? Now, what's mighty weird, though, is that the Supreme Court already ruled in Pennsylvania that you got to throw out the ballot. So if it passes in Pennsylvania, common sense gonna tell you sooner or later they have to go one size fits all votes in that equation as well. But it goes to show you that a lot of people, when it comes to Constitution, maybe now I'm giving you credit, but a lot of people didn't know civics in school, but that's not their fault, because they didn't really teach you civics in government in school.
Right. Didn't me either. Not the details. We knew about the 3 branches of government. We knew the executive branch, legislative branch, judicial branch, but to go into the particulars and see where we're getting our information from is the biased media. Either side, whether you're talking about Fox News or whether you're talking about CNN, it's still a slanted presentation. We need to start reading for ourselves. They used to say that, I'm sad, it's sad to say, but they used to say this saying, and it's so true. If you want a black person not to know something, put it in a book.
Well, you're right.
They're going to read the book, so they'll never know.
You're right. And you know something else?
And I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm glad that you have your program. I'm glad that I have my program on Wednesday, because those programs give you some information, real information, constitutional law, things that are for real. You cannot claim someone to be really a president-elect until they become a president-elect. And that happens on December the 14th. That's when the person is president-elect. What we've done is this: what we've done. We've allowed a tradition, a custom, to become almost as if it's a law. And what I mean by that is most presidential candidates that lose will concede. So we don't have to, even though this process goes on, it's not a controversy behind it, because the man conceded. He said, okay, I agree. They won. I'm pulling out. So then but the process goes through anyhow. But it's not like it is this year, because one of the candidates is contesting it. Most time they don't. Most time they do concede. They go on with the process. No controversy, no problem. And then on January the 20th, the person is elected.
Let's do a history lesson. if you go on the Google the internet, and this is why I call predictive programming, because one thing about it, you know, we forget history real easy, right?
Oh yeah.
If you go Google the internet, you'll find this article that said Amy Coney Barrett, will it be Bush Gore 2000? And you can go to Google and find it will be a string of articles. It kind of actually almost let you know what's going on and how they think it's gonna go. But what I'm letting you know is we forget 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Again.
With the George W. and Al Gore.
Now I'm gonna give you a scenario here. In 1992, Bill Clinton did not win the popular vote. It was really split between a guy named Russ Perot.
I remember that.
Vote. Yeah. Russ Perot was the only reason that George W. Bush didn't have a second term.
Oh, Ross yeah. George H.W.
Yes. George H.W. Yeah. Sorry. But yeah, he was the reason why.
Daddy Bush.
Yeah. He was the reason why, because otherwise, if Ross Perot didn't come and split 20% of the vote, he would have got it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And actually, you know, as a matter of fact, come to think about it, unfortunately, and a lot of people don't agree with me in that. They laugh at me, but I say Trump is really Ross Perot, actually, because he's really the independent candidate as a populist masquerading as a Republican.
Well, certainly he's not a Republican, and I'm going to tell you the truth. Once we think Trump's bad, okay? Many people do, and I'm not a big Trump fan myself, but I'm going to tell you this: once we get, if he does lose and Biden is eventually inaugurated the president of the United States, you're going to see what the Republican Party used to be like. Now, you think it's bad under Trump? The Republican Party did absolutely nothing for us at all as a people. So you think it's bad now, okay? Trump's in there, But like you said before, Trump is a populist. He goes against the grain with the Republicans as well. Most of them don't like him. They've accepted him because they want a man in the White House, and he's very popular with those conservative and others. So they tolerate him. They just bite their lip, swallow their pride, and pretend like they're on his side because they want to keep that White House. They want to keep that White House. They want to keep the Senate. And so, that's the thing I want to say too, that it's interesting. This is very rare that the president the party that has the president that seems to be losing actually has a Congress that seems to be winning. What I mean by that is the House of Representatives has added members from the Republican Party to its membership. And the Senate has even added a few and has maintained their power in spite of the fact people are talking about we're going to get rid of Trump. Most times it's like a tail end thing. Whatever the way the presidential candidate goes, that's the way the Senate will go as well, and the Congress will go. But in this case, it looks like the even if he does lose, the Republican Party has not lost. The Republican Party has gained, which is a very unusual thing. Most times, if your president is winning, you're going to win. If your president is losing, you're going to lose. You're going to lose seats in the Congress. This is the first time that didn't happen in a long time.
Now, let me say something to you on that, because I want to bring something to your attention now that you're mentioning it, right? Let me bring something to your attention. Gotta bring this up. All right, I got it. Now, it's an interesting topic because I got an article I can find, but I'm gonna find it in a minute. I think, as a matter of fact, Trump's one of the lawyers even said that Trump probably got 8 million votes. They had a software thing, and I have to show you the article. But let me give you a statistic here. In Nevada, you had 1.27 million registered voters, 1.593 million 143 votes, which is 125% turnout. Now, ain't no way you can have more 125. In Pennsylvania, the turnout was 109%. 106 in North Carolina, 107 in Minnesota, 105 in Wisconsin, 105 in Michigan, 101 in Arizona and 96% in Georgia. Now, Bishop, you been around a long time, right?
Yep.
You don't even have 60% usually vote in a daggone state with all those people. So you 125% turnout. That's amazing. Isn't it?
It is. It is. It is.
Matter of fact, it's not amazing. It's mathematically impossible.
Yeah. That's more accurate. That's more accurate phrase.
So,
It's virtually impossible. Really.
Well,
I'm not going to say it's impossible. Period. But I'll say it's virtually impossible. It's such a rare thing.
Well, let me say something. You see, because that's what they had problem they had in Michigan. They said all the ballots were for Joe Biden, but nobody voted down ballots. Now, I mean, that don't. I mean, somebody's gonna vote down the ticket. Like you can vote for senator, congressman, something like that. I mean, like I said, Bishop, they made it so easy. It always raises red flags in your head. Now, I want to say something to you, being a bishop.
Mm-hmm.
I want an article today. Now, I'm not sure you probably would pay attention to this, but I just kind of very peculiar. The NBA player, right, went to meet the Pope this morning to talk about social issues.
Okay.
Now, I'm looking at it like the Pope, right? The Pope, the Vatican, right? They went there to the Vatican. Now, to me, it seems to me, is this script? Look at me, I'm gonna just say something. Can I get some popcorn and just read how this is playing out? Because I just don't understand why NBA players meet with a Pope. I mean, I'm just, perplexed, but then I understand, like, okay. But this is the same Pope that just earlier this year broke up with the Catholic Church to endorse same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
Well, it's mighty weird. And, the NBA players are supporting Black Lives Matter. So, yeah.
But let me say this, Bernard. In terms of the Pope is not only a religious leader, he's actually he's almost like a president. He's also an executive person, meaning this, that Vatican City is a nation. It's a state. It's like they say Vatican City, it's the Vatican state. And he is a chief executive of a quote unquote nation. I use it loosely because it's not the same as America and all that, United States and all of that. But he is a chief executive. So, he has political and he also has naturally spiritual influence as well. But I'm like you. I mean, I feel that some of this is just political. I think you have to look at when you look at the Pope. You have to look at a Pope, yes, as a religious leader, but you also can never forget that he's also a state leader as well. He's just like a prime minister. He's just like a president. He's just like a king in other countries. He has the same right. He's the chief executive of that Vatican state. So he's the head of the Vatican City, meaning the head of the Catholic Church, but he's also the head of the Vatican state. And you have to remember that because he's a politician too, by virtue of his rank and position, he's going to act like a politician. He's going to say things, rule on things, decide on things, change things if need be. That's politically expedient. So as you listen to the Pope, I always listen to the Pope with two ears. As a spiritual guide, yes, he's the head of the Catholic Church, and I know he's supposed to be infallible and all of that. He may be infallible in terms of the Catholic Church, but his decisions are not always infallible when it comes to the state. Because, for example, the Vatican, the Pope approved Adolf Hitler. He supported Adolf Hitler and Nazism during that time. So they're not infallible in terms of their political mind. They might be infallible in terms of their spiritual, but they're not always infallible about political decisions that they make. And we know that because the Crusades was headed by the Pope. The Spanish Inquisition was headed by the Pope. The other atrocities in our world, including slavery, was endorsed by the Pope.
The Roman Church.
Exactly. The Roman Catholic Church. So we got to look at it from two perspectives. He's the head of the Roman Catholic Church, but he's also head of state. And a lot of decisions he makes, a lot of things he says is as a head of state and not as a spiritual head.
What is it?
And I wish Catholics and others would understand that.
What is it, Bishop? Apostolic?
Yeah, apostolic succession. It goes from Peter all the way to him. But Peter was the head of the church. He had no political power. This man has political power and also has spiritual power. So when you listen to him, you have to look at him from two perspectives. When he says things that are not of God, in my humble estimation, when he says things that are not in the Bible, things that are contrary to the faith, he's speaking as a political leader. I take off the mitre that he wears as a bishop, and I put on his hat, his little derby he wears as a politician. That's how I look at him. So I hear what he says in terms of political things, and I said, that's not the God part. That's the head of state part. That's being the head of a state. And so we have to look at him that way. We have to look at things. We have to look at things realistically. But you have to know all of that, because all you think about the Pope, you think about he's the head of the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, and he's this, and he's the chief bishop of all the bishops, and he infallible, and he hears from God and all of that. He has all that power in the spiritual realm, but in the political arena, he's just like every other politician, moved and governed by the wind. What's politically expedient, what's politically correct. And that's what he does. And if you look at the policies that he's made and other popes have made, you can actually see the difference in their spiritual talk and their political talk.
Yes. So that shows me what you're saying there. So, like I said, with the Pope, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was looking at him, the way you broke that down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people just look at him as,
a spiritual leader.
Yes.
He's the Pope, the spiritual head of the Catholic Church. Okay, but that's one of his hats. That's not the only hat he wears.
I look at it when he meets with the NBA players, he's actually out, getting onto the political side of Black Lives Matter.
That's right. When he speaks before the UN, he's not speaking as the Pope. A Pope don't have no authority to go to the UN, but a head of state does. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the Pope wouldn't go to a United Nations. I mean, that's a political, that's a government thing. That's not a spiritual thing. Half of them don't even believe in God. Some of them certainly don't believe in the Christian faith. You have Muslims, you have Islamic people, you have Hindus, you got atheists. Everybody's sitting up there in the UN. So when he sits there and talks before the UN, he's talking as a political leader, not as a spiritual leader.
Yeah, and a lot of those popes are Jewish too.
Oh, they have been in the past. They have been.
Yeah. So
well, the first pope was Jewish. If you say Peter,
yeah,
the early popes all were Jewish. The whole faith was Jewish.
Right.
It started with Christ, because he was a Jew. So the whole faith is rooted in Judaism.
Right.
That's why we got an Old Testament as well as a New Testament.
Yeah. Now we got a pastor running. Now I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and we got a pastor running in Georgia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you had. Matter of fact, I know you had the conversation with Miss Angela Stanton King.
Oh yeah. We won a program together. Yep.
Okay. This pastor Warnock, and I'm gonna give you my opinion on this. Okay. I would say not opinion. Well, in fact, I would say my statement. This ain't an opinion. I would say, look, this guy passed the preaching in Martin Luther King Church, Ebenezer Church, right?
Right.
But two things he supports: LGBT and abortion. His name is Warnock. So I said, okay, they're trying to tell you to come out to vote for this guy in Georgia, right? I say, look here, man. I know you people might like to do it, but don't vote for him. Either vote for somebody else, or let the Republican white girl win, because that's a complete conflict of interest of pastor to be involved in something like that.
Of course, that's why in many denominations, pastors are not involved in politics, because there's too much there's too much willing and dealing and all of this type of thing. There's too much of this having to live this kind of way and have to support this and that. Things that are contrary to what the Word of God says. We're not supposed to support things that are contrary to the Word of God. We're really not. And when we do, it's a conflict of interest as far as I'm concerned. You can't be a pastor and stand for things that the Bible stands against. I mean, that's just how I feel. Now, if you want to give up your pastorate and just want to be a politician, okay, well that's okay. But see, he's using his spiritual, his church influence in a political perspective. They don't know him as Mr. Warnock. They know him as pastor, the head of the Ebenezer Baptist Church, which Martin Luther King, that's all entailed in it. Martin Luther King's church, and all that holds weight. So when he's running for politics, he has all that behind him. Ebenezer, the church of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Well, I mean, he's not no Dr. Martin Luther King, by no means.
Well,
what do they say to
that's a chicken biscuit for us. That's a chicken biscuit for us to say, oh my God, he preached at Martin Luther King's old church. Oh my goodness, he was such a great man.
Yeah, but so that's what I'm saying. We're so much into gestures and symbolisms as a people. That's Martin Luther King. That don't mean that's this man. That don't mean that's this man, because Martin Luther King been dead for 50 years. Over 50 years, actually. Come on now. 1968. That's 52 years ago. This man wasn't hardly even born when Martin Luther King died. If he was nothing but a boy. Well, so I mean, just because somebody pastors the same church that Martin Luther King pastors doesn't mean he's the caliber of man that Martin Luther King was. I'm going to tell you the truth. Martin Luther King would be very upset with the political arena that we're in now. He would be very upset.
Well, can I give you I know you might know this. In the late 1990s, you had a lot of churches that were probably like doing bad and ready to fall under black churches.
Yeah.
And then you had Bush coming with that faith-based initiative.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Obama did the faith-based initiative too. But the problem with the faith-based initiative, and a lot of people don't understand, it gave churches money, right?
Yeah.
But it also kind of, I would say, also made a church not adhere to its moral obligations, because then they were.
I've been saying that. That because I was a pastor during that time. I actually myself was pastor in the AME church, and I know some of the big church pastors. I was always a smaller church pastor in terms of members, but I know some of those big church pastors that had to rely on government monies to build their buildings and to get their community centers started and all of that kind of thing. When you compromise, and I'll say like this, when you deal with the government and need favors from the government, then you have to dance the government's tune.
Well, yes, and
that means you gotta marry homosexuals. You have to do certain things because you're getting government money, and government supports those programs. So if you say I want $1 billion or $1 million from the federal government or even the state government, even your local government for that matter, then you have to walk the tune they walk, they play.
Well, yeah, and see now that's how Bush was able to get some blacks to support him, right?
Yeah.
Faith-based initiative.
Right.
But really, to be honest with you, Bush was able to get it done. But when Obama came with that faith-based initiative, doubled down on it, oh man, they went crazy over that thing. They really stopped preaching then.
Yep. Oh yeah, because he made it clear. See, George W., good, bad, or indifferent, and I have a lot of problem with George W. as well. But good, bad, or indifferent, he was more faith-based than Obama was. Yeah. Obama was ready to throw his pastor underneath the bus. Jeremiah Wright. Obama. I'm gonna tell you the truth. In my humble estimation, Obama uses whoever he needs to use to get what he wants done. To get where he wants to get, he will use anybody in order to get there. But once he gets there, most times you see his true colors, where he really stands on things.
It was a lady in Chicago that helped him get to a spot, right? A seat,
Yeah.
like try to help him run a seat, right?
Right.
And he was supposed to help her out. After he used her, he threw her under the bus.
Of course, he did nothing for Chicago. Yeah,
But-
that was his district. That's the state that got him into the House of Representatives and ultimately into the Senate.
Wait a minute. Now, one thing I will say he did for Chicago, you know what he did?
What?
He helped spur up the gentrification efforts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah. Yeah. He did do that. Yeah.
if you go online right now in 2018, you'll find an article about they tried to build a Barack Obama library, and a lot of people came out there and protested because they said there was no guarantee about the jobs that the community was getting, and you could just come and apply at the library. A lot of people protested the library. I'm not sure if they're still building it, but they went out there and protested that land and said, "No, y'all ain't building this library right here. So we don't know what you plan to do." And I think it was going to be in the middle of a black district, as a matter of fact. So people came out there.
Right. I mean, Chicago citizens, in particular those that are black, have a little. They're like divided on Obama. You know,
Yeah.
they know who he was when he was working with their city and their programs and all of that. But some of them are disappointed by the lackluster way that he came back and really helped them once he was the chief executive of the United States of America. How he really almost abandoned them. And just like you say, he had a grassroots support in Chicago, and they felt that he would reach back, the same man that helped us get this and help us get that while he was in Chicago. He'd remember us when he got into Washington.
Well, that's why I know
he didn't do it.
That's why I know that Biden didn't really win Michigan, because of some fact of 1 in 3 black people in Michigan and those Midwest states voted for Trump. As a matter of fact, Trump got 18% of the black men, and that's 8 to 10% of the black women. That's, give or take, you just add 2 numbers together, 26%. But I know daggone he went on Michigan, because one thing about it, a lot of people were actually mad, and they were mad at Obama for that stunt when he pulled with that water.
Yeah, Flint, Michigan. Yeah.
That was a travesty, man. Hey, look, just because you sip a glass don't mean to lay it out my body.
And they know it was a sham. And then even more so, he did nothing for them. He didn't clean up that water. He didn't order nothing. No president has. After all this, we've had how many governors in that state? Nobody. That woman that's in there now, nobody has done anything to correct that problem. And when Obama went there and did his little gimmick, his little stage show, it made it seem like he was minimizing and actually denying the fact that there was any problem with the water. Well, that's the impression he was trying to give them. To me, if the president of the United States, the most powerful man in the world, if he is willing to drink this water and he ain't dead, then this must either be a propaganda thing, or people exaggerating it, or it's not as bad as they want to paint it as being. Come on now. Come on. I think as a black man, that was a travesty on his part. Now, he's not African American, but he is black. And he does have African roots. And for him to go to a city that's predominantly black, 75% of the population in Flint is black. They're dying, they're getting sick, all of this that's happening with them because of this water. And to pull this little shenanigans that he pulled, giving the impression that it's not as bad as people would want you to believe or lead you to believe, was a travesty. Because if one child gets sick, that's enough for me. Somebody should have done something about it. Still, nobody's done nothing about it. We've talked about it, but ain't nobody done nothing about it.
I think the Trump administration did give him $100 million, and some people was able to get what they call lawsuits. But I will say this.
Well, that's good.
But I will say this, that you see, no amount of money can make up for the lead in your body.
No.
And that's a dramatic experience. Those were children with lead.
Yeah, that's right. So, just like lead poisoning. Lead poisoning.
But you know how they had like an auto plants, and they were dumping the residue of the auto plant.
Right. And contaminating water. Contaminating that water, yeah.
But Detroit actually had filed bankruptcy around that time as well. And they were trying to cut back on money, but I mean, it went to But really, to tell you the truth, that water won't even safe to take a bath in, no less drink, man. So
Oh yeah, because you're still absorbing it in your pores, still going
yeah.
into your body, going through your pores. Still the
But
same thing.
even like I was looking up the other day, and like I want to just say something that really disturbed me with Biden. He said this year we had 37 transgender, non-conforming people that have gotten killed by trans violence. So I looked up and I said, well, yeah, okay, but you had 700 people get almost killed in city of Chicago this year too. So
that's one city. That's
yeah,
one city. They talk about today. They're talking about today. 400 and some people in Philadelphia got killed this year. So far, year's not even over yet.
Okay.
400 and some people. So that's 1,000 some people in 2 cities.
I got a clarification. I got a clarification from Mr. Terrell Pruitt. Trump's administration gave him $100 million in March or April of 2017.
Okay, good. That's good. Well, that's something. That's more than Obama did. They gave him nothing but a glass of water.
Hey, look, a glass of, and let's just, like, in the mirror, it looked like he didn't even really drink it. He just put his lips like I'm drinking it, And even if he did sip it, guess what? You really think they can give the president of the United States some filthy water?
That's what I'm trying to say. You mean the Secret Service allowed the president of the United States to drink contaminated water that's killed and maimed and made sick other people? President of the United States, we're gonna let you do that. Go on, do it. That's a bunch of people are so naive into believing that. That's what I'm gonna tell you the truth. This is what bothers me more than these politicians. That they can continuously do what they're doing with no repercussions, no accountability. They go back into the office again. They go back into their position again, over and over and over again. Like we don't know. You mean to tell me that if you living in a city like I live in, Philadelphia, or you live in Richmond, Virginia, these cities, all you got to do is go outside of your house and see how little has changed in your area. Not talking about the whole state, talking about just your little street. Go outside your street. Tell me how much your street has changed significantly. Tell me how much your life has changed significantly. It hasn't. Yet you put that same person back in time and time and time again. How can you have a city like Los Angeles with all these people that are homeless, and your congressperson lives in a $4 million home off of $175,000 salary, and you put them back in again? I just don't. That's what baffles
me. Let me give you some statistics here. Okay, I think Feinstein is in her 80s. I think maybe 87. Dianne Feinstein, California.
Right.
Nancy Pelosi is 81 or 82, and Maxine Waters is 82. There's 3 California politicians right there. Clyburn is 80. Yep. Look, y'all had enough. Can y'all step down already and let the young people get to see?
Somebody, my God.
And
been there 25, 30, 40 years.
John Lewis died running against Anderson King, but all they did was plug his surrogate in there, so you really got John Lewis all over again.
Oh yeah, naturally.
So, in all honesty, you didn't really even. You still got John Lewis. He just died. That's all. I mean,
yeah, right. She's gonna go through the same policies, the same. Whatever he voted for, she's gonna vote for. Whatever he stood on, she's gonna stand on. Same difference. There's no difference at all. And they do that over and over again. It's crazy.
But I will say this, and because I wanted to keep it in the line of this, like I know you said you used to have AME pastors, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, I respect you. But if I had the opportunity to go to South Carolina and Charleston, I probably would have slapped one of them guys and say, can y'all wake up? Don't let them do this. Do not let this happen. You can't come in here singing. Matter of fact, that's part of the faith-based initiative right there, because you bringing a politician to talk about, he really tell you the truth. He came there, but you know what bothers me about that? He came there, but he didn't come to the funerals of a lot of the brothers that got killed by police officers. But when Ma'Khia Johnson up there in Dallas when they shot them police officers, they killed them robot.
Yeah.
He did go to those police officers funeral down
Yeah.
there with George Bush in Dallas.
Yeah, I remember.
So that was a contradiction. Also, I had something to say to you about this. What's this guy? I'm in this Facebook group now, and it's called Boycott Any Black Man in Drag. Right?
Mm.
So I was showing pictures to guys of LeBron James in a progressive apron with a wig on, and you got this guy Lil Nas X. He's got he dressed up as Nicki Minaj for Halloween, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I got a new statement, Bishop. If you a buffoon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what it is, buffoonery.
Mm-hmm.
We have to kind of distance ourselves from you because right now we can't handle the buffoonery. I don't like to see black men wearing drag, or really I don't really like to see them be with a man either, but I really don't like to see them when they're in drag. Like LeBron, you're a big, strong basketball player. You shouldn't even be dressing like that, man.
Almost like Tyler Perry with that Medea character.
You know, one day I was a guy, so I had a lady one time ask me, you don't really watch Medea movies and stuff. I told her, no, I don't watch stuff like that. It's kind of depressing, you know. I said, because I look at it, like, why do you think Medea movie so popular? I mean, I told her Tyler Perry could be a good actor, but I mean, I said, actually tell you the truth, you make us look really weak when you show us in drag like that.
Mm.
I mean, it's kind of like almost, I'm gonna say it again, get your booty to the pole type thing. Remember that?
Oh that commercial, yeah.
So it's buffoonery. Like, well, we don't have to give them anything. We can just give a simple gesture, you know. Like they could probably say, I'm gonna be dead on with you. And I don't really like to sound like I'm stereotypical, but I gotta do this. I just for lab purposes. Really, to be honest with you, they were actually proposing this year that you could vote at a drive-through.
What?
Yeah, they were talking about maybe doing that. You know. I don't know if you remember last year. Remember last year they had like a Popeyes thing where everybody was surrounding the Popeyes and going to Popeyes.
That chicken sandwich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, can I give you my take on that?
What's that?
To me, Bishop, I'm not gonna tell you no lie, man. That was a national embarrassment, man.
It really was.
You were lying. Well, I didn't go, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know. But you're right. They did. People actually hurt each other, grabbing and fighting and all that kind of. What kind of what? So little sandwich from Popeye, you gonna fight over that? Come on now.
But you know what I say about that though?
What's that?
I say that they showed you that was a test run of an experiment what they were doing. They were trying to see how many people would come. I mean, because look, Bishop, you at home right now. You can get off this thing right now and say, hey, man, I want to make me a chicken sandwich. You don't have to go to Popeyes to go get a chicken sandwich.
I don't. I don't. Right? I can make one right here now. I know how to make chicken sandwich.
The brother says
it'd be nice and fresh. There wouldn't be no wrapped in no aluminum foil for 2 or 3 hours. It'll be nice and fresh.
Last guy says a nasty chicken sandwich too, so obviously he's had it. But
but people weren't impressed by it. They weren't really impressed. It wasn't all that, fighting over it. What for that?
Well, you know what I say about that, Bishop? It's kind of like the Jordan experiment. If you give us something, we say, oh, we want more. We want that. We got to try it. You don't have to go try the chicken sandwich, man. If you going to Popeyes, I had people ask me one day, have you had that chicken sandwich yet? Have you had a chicken sandwich yet? I still ain't had the chicken sandwich.
I haven't either. I haven't tasted it yet.
But then again, I'm
not wearing no daggone chicken sandwich. I want a chicken sandwich. I either make one myself or go wherever I can get one without getting in the line. I ain't getting in line for no chicken sandwich. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Not me. Not me.
But
and I love chicken.
It just shows a lack of quality. But also I wanted to say to you, like in Philadelphia, like I said, a lot of people, the city It's been a great city. It's got a lot of history. But I want you to establish, because a lot of people don't understand. When I always talk about Philadelphia, it's one thing I always talk about. You know what I always talk about?
What's that?
The move incident.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want you to explain a little about the move thing.
Oh, okay. Well, Move was a 1970s and 1980s a group here. It was a Back to Nature group. It was head by John Africa and Ramona Africa, and it was a group that really, I mean, they didn't believe in dealing with the public in terms of paying taxes. They didn't believe in they had their bullhorns on their roofs and stuff like that, preaching their back to nature philosophy, and they were very political in terms of the black community and all of that. And it was first in Powelton, on Powelton Avenue. That was the one in 1970. I think 1975, 1976. It was a time where Frank Rizzo was the chief of police. In fact, he was the commissioner of police. And if anybody knows anything about Frank Rizzo, he was one of the biggest racists in government here in Philadelphia. And at that time, he was the commissioner of police. And he ordered that the people leave and desist and get out the house and all that, move on. And they refused to do it. Gunfire came about then. Police were killed. Many of them were killed. But in 1985, they moved to Osage Avenue, and that's in West Philadelphia. And they went to Osage Avenue, and once again they had their back to Africa philosophy, back to nature rather philosophy. They didn't believe in hygiene, taking baths and all of that. They let their animals go free and up and down the streets, and so the people got tired mainly of the bullhorn, proclaiming all night long, playing their music, preaching their message of liberation and all of that type of thing. And so they complained to the city about it. The neighborhood did. And so they came out and they had a warrant. They supposedly disturbing the peace warrant, and they wanted them to stop and all of this. And they refused to do it. So they came back out and they started to, they were going to serve the warrant. They were going to, first they tried to negotiate with them the first time. Then they were going to serve the warrant. That's when all hell break loose, excuse my language. And they ordered them to keep in mind the mayor at that time was Wilson Good Senior, who was a black man, and so he was the head of the city government, and the city manager was also a black man named Brooks. Then they had the commissioner of police at that time. He was a white gentleman, and the fire commissioner Richardson. He was a white person. So they decided to they waited them out, tell them to come on out. They would still went on their bullhorns. They ordered them to come out. They gave them an X amount of time, and before the day was ended, they held out for a while. But before the day was ended, there was a fire. Somebody fired shots. They don't know whether it was from Move or from the police. But the reaction of the whole thing became bad. They began firing on them. They began to shoot at them. Those that were coming out, they shot them so they could go back in. They had to come back in. They said surrender. They wouldn't allow them to surrender. The people had to go back in the house. There was 14 children and 15 adults, and even the children, they would not let the children come out of the house. Every time they would do that, they would chase them back in. So eventually, because the standoff took so long, the mayor approved that there be a C. What was it? C. It's a bomb. I forget its name. C-14 or something like that. And they got it in a helicopter, and they dropped it on the bunker. The bunker is where they did all their pronouncements, the bullhorn was in the bunker and all that. They dropped it on the bunker, and the thing exploded, and so a great fire took place. They were trying to get out. They start shooting them. Then the police start shooting them and making them go back in the house. They went back in the house. People were dying, screaming. You could hear the children on the inside screaming. And the women talking about, you could hear them saying, "Quiet down. It'll be okay. It'll be okay." So the thing starts spreading. It engulfed that house, destroying the house. All but 3 children died. Most of the women died, and most of the men died. Only a few escaped this onslaught. But what happened was, after they dropped the bomb, the fire, they refused to put the fire out. The commissioner told them not to put the fire out, to let it burn. But what happened was it got out of control, and the whole neighborhood. These are row homes. These aren't single homes. These are row homes, about 50 row homes. Next to them, all the way down to the corner on either side, burnt down to the ground. Everybody was displaced. Not just to move people, but everybody on the street, on that particular 100 block, the 600 block of Osage Avenue, they were all displaced, and they lost their homes. They put them up, rebuilt them. They rebuilt them so shabbily that when they went back into the houses all caved in. They had to rebuild them a second time because the one that built the houses, they couldn't find them. They were trying to get him. He skipped town. So they had to get another architect, another contractor, and all that to finish the buildings and to rebuild some of the homes. And that's what happened.
So what you're saying is that they were only supposed to burn one house, but they ended up burning the whole thing.
They wanted to what they wanted to do. Yeah, they wanted to burn one house, right? But because they let it get out of hand, and they wouldn't put out the fire after the thing really was engulfed to the point that there was no hope for that house, they still refused to put out the fire. They did not put out the fire for. They started about 4 or 5 in the afternoon. They didn't start putting out the fire till about 8 o'clock at night.
Okay, so how many people, members of the move, people died again?
There were at least 6 children that died out of those 14. 6 children died. 3 women died, and I think 4 men died. It was altogether about between 12 and 15 people died in that situation.
And that still is talked about in that city today.
Oh yeah, I mean that thing is and being a black mayor too. He was our first black mayor.
That's what I know.
Mayor of the city of Philadelphia, and it happened under his watch. So the neighborhood really had a problem with him for a long while. And he was a preacher. He was a preacher too. He ended up being a pastor, but he was. It was
a $1.5 million civil suit was awarded in 1996 for this incident.
Right. But it happened in 1986.
Where I'm saying it was passed 10 years later.
Right.
Now I got one other thing to say, Bishop, to you. You got this brother in the chat named Mr. McClure. He's out there in Texas, I see.
Okay.
And he said he admires your show. But he said he's in Texas, and he said he got brothers on code,
Uh-huh.
He said he got brothers on code, but he said that he was talking to an Asian guy, right?
Okay.
And the Asian guy told him that that he had the trucking company for his family, but he looked up the place. And he said the Asian guy, they got a whole trucking company, and all they do is deliver produce to other Asians.
What?
Right?
Uh-huh.
So I told him that, well, that's okay, because we could do the same thing and just donate to ourselves. But then, somebody have a problem with it. I mean, I told him we don't like if we don't include everybody, we're not happy. We can't just say, I just want to deliver or don't deal with just black
people. Yeah, because and that's been a problem I've had too for forever, really. How other communities are very parochial, really segregate themselves. We know every big city, I'm sure in Richmond as well, there's always a Chinatown area where all the Chinese live. And they may work in your area. They have stores in your part of town, but they go back home and they support their own community. And it's weird how nobody really talks against that or speaks about that. That why don't you, do more in this and that? Why are you taking all the money from the poorest communities in your cities and bringing it back to your area where you live, and you're very productive. You have their own banks, all the grocery stores, all their houses, everything in that little community, Chinatown, are all dealing with Chinese people, and no one has a problem with them bringing monies in from other communities, mainly African American communities, and yet they bring it back home, and they do nothing to support the community. Nothing. They don't do anything. I know I lived in West Philadelphia, my wife and I, just a couple of years ago before we moved here, and they actually had a Korean church sitting right in our neighborhood, because at one point that area was Korean and had a lot of white and Korean, so they kept their church there. And so, but would they didn't want us to come in there because we couldn't. I guess the way they spoke Korean, so we couldn't have done too much in there. But they didn't do anything for the community. And here your church sitting right in the heart of the black neighborhood, and yet you don't do anything for the community. And so a lot of communities do that. I mean, white folk, I mean, they go back to their banks and they go back to their communities after having stores and stuff in our community, and no one says anything. But we try to look after our own interests. Oh, here they go. They segregate. They ain't no better than anybody else. Come on, why is this a double standard always? When it comes to us, there's always a double standard. When it comes to us, we always got to include other people in our reparations. Anything that we want for ourselves, we got to include everybody in it. Well, we ain't gonna get nothing either.
That's interesting, because of a Hispanic lady that said that this came out in California and said, I think she's a teacher, she might be a professor or a rep. She said, we want reparations too. I said, oh God, here we go. Everybody wants some cream in the crop. But let me tell you something. You got some black coon out there that's gonna say, oh yeah, Latinos deserve reparations too.
And I have no problem with them paying anything they want, they can get. But don't discredit our claim. And in my mind, don't put anybody before our claim. Don't put anybody before our claim. Native Americans have had hundreds of millions of dollars so far. They were guaranteed $3 billion. They're going to get the $3 billion before it's all over. You know that. They already got half. The Supreme Court gave them half of Oklahoma. Most of the casinos in this nation are theirs. And you want to include them in our reparation. We've got nothing. Not no land, not no state, not nothing.
Jim,
you don't own no casinos. You ain't given us $6. Let alone that was $1,200 is all we've ever gotten from the government.
Hey, let me say something, Bishop. Jim Clyburn does not speak for me.
No, he doesn't. Oh no.
He says, "Oh, I don't want nothing."
Well, I do. He can give me his then. Because he don't want to give me his part. I'll take it.
Hey, look, man. I will say this to you, but yeah, the brother. He did make that statement, and he said that he's I think he's looking at some black farmer stuff. So I just wanted to give Mr. McClure a shout out. He said he wants to call into your program on some wins and stuff. Sometimes he be listening. But yeah, he said that Asian guy told him that, but he said he's not expecting them to tell him their business. But he said they had a whole trucking company themselves, man. So with that, I always say, see, like you said, segregated, right? Remember that word you used? See, a lot of us look at the word segregation. We say it's so bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, if you look at areas in America, right? Everything is segregated. I mean, your neighborhood probably mostly black in it, right?
It is. Okay. I can count the white people. I got white people in one hand on my neighborhood.
Where Italians live at, it's gonna be Italian mostly.
That's right.
Jews, Chinese, white.
That's right.
So they always talk about re-desegregated. I mean, you just ended for segregation, but it's still segregated. Actually, it's probably more segregated now.
It is. It's nothing that's changed. The neighborhoods are still pretty much what they were before. If anything, because of gentrification, they're taking back some of the old neighborhoods that used to be ours, and they're pushing us back into a place that is mainly us in it. For example, where we live, we lived there for 7 years before we moved here, and it was basically black. But because the University of Pennsylvania and Drexel, which are the two largest universities and colleges there in that part of the city, they wanted those properties. They moved us out. And they built condominiums and things that were dormitory places and stuff. And they gave us 30 days to move out. And we had to find up, once again, we had to go up to North Philly, which where most of us live. So even the areas we used to live in, it was opened up to us in the 40s and 50s. Now they're closed us again, and now they're even pushing us, just like you're saying, even further into one little general area where we generally live, and it's up in North Philadelphia. Most of us now live in North Philly.
Let me break this down to you before I go. You see the weird thing though. Well, not weird, but it's actually instead of moving to the city, right? They moving more black people to the counties right now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, hey, look, y'all can have this now. Y'all can have the county. We don't want it no more. We want the city.
Yep. Yeah. Because
transportation. But you don't have
most of them work in the city, and they're tired of paying taxes for the city in the suburbs. So they're saying what they're saying is, let's go back to the city. First of all, it's closer. Instead of us having to commute all the time, we got all these L's and trains and buses and all of that. We can get around in the city without even taking our car in the city. We go going into the suburbs, you have to take your car in because there's no transportation from the suburbs to the city. If there are, it's a long ride to get into the city. This way, you're right in the city. Jump on a bus, jump on a L, jump on the train, and you can go anywhere in the city you want to go. Even get an Uber or Lyft or a taxi cab, and you go anywhere in the city you want to. So it's convenient for them to live in the city, which is where their life is. There's not much work out there in the suburbs.
Well, let me say something, and I'm gonna just you one thing. When you do gentrification, one thing white people do. They take the tax base from that area and they bring it back. So if they had a job in the suburb, they bring them back to the city.
Right.
They did it with the white flight in the 19.
I remember that. You're right.
You had all the factories, right?
Right.
When they moved out, the factories closed out. Everything went down.
That's right. That's what happened in Philadelphia.
So they know once they leave, the tax base leaves, and they're gonna leave you discrepant. I mean, I'm not sure you've been in Philadelphia, and you've seen buildings that's probably been standing up for the last 20 years.
Oh yeah, I know of quite a few buildings that used to be very prosperous in terms of employment and in terms of hiring people, in particular our folk. And they're just sitting up there now. There's big factories with nobody in it, nobody's using them or nothing. They're just sitting there. I know this Bond Bread used to be out here. Wonder Bread used to be out here. There used to be a big booming businesses. Tasty Cake used to be in Philadelphia. Campbell's Soup used to be right here in New Jersey. Those buildings all closed there. They're closed in Pepperidge Farm. Used to be another big business. They're all closed down there. There's no Pepperidge Farm here. I mean, there's still Pepperidge Farm, the place, but not here in Philadelphia. They're gone.
Well, look, it's very interesting. As a matter of fact, one day we got to do a show on the prospects of gentrification. We got that in.
That would be good.
We'll do that because I do know that in Philadelphia is actually, a lot of people don't know, you know it because you live there, but a lot of people don't know Philadelphia is and still is a mob town in some aspects.
Oh yeah,
lot of business been going down in Philadelphia for a lot of years.
Oh yeah, and all around the area.
I know you got some Italians down there in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, right in South Philly. That's where they mainly live, in South Philadelphia.
That's right.
They live in South Philly. That's where a lot of them live. See, just like you say, everybody's segregated.
Italians.
Like the people that are Polish, they live in the Frankfurt section, northeast section of Philadelphia. Everybody's kind of like that, got their own little neighborhood, really. And so just like you say, we're not as integrated as people would like to believe. We're not as integrated as we would like to believe. What integration meant for me is, this is what integration means for me, that I still have the freedom to go where I want to go and do what I want to do. It shouldn't be that it's a compulsion that I have to live here, that we got to integrate with one another, that we got to live side by side, kumbaya, because I know you don't really want to live beside me anyway, so I don't really want to live beside you either. But I want to have the freedom to choose where I want to go, choose where I want to eat, choose where I want to sleep, choosing what drinking fountain I drink out of. I want to have the freedom to do that. That don't mean I want to live next to you or date your daughter or anything else.
Well,
that's two different issues.
Well, that's one good thing. But that you don't want to do that. But hey, I just want you to take your time, do what you got to do in Philadelphia. You're a wonderful man.
Thank
I
you, my
just want
brother. You are too.
shout out your contact information because some people need to hear your show.
Okay, blog. We have Real Talk with the G-Man every prime time, every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Blog Talk Radio. The call-in number is 515-602-9655. That's Blog Talk Radio. Our program is called Real Talk with the G-Man prime time. This Wednesday, we're not going to be having a program because of the Thanksgiving on Thursday. I know people are going places and other things, but we're going to pick right up again on the first Wednesday in December. We have our guest presenter will be Lauren Powell. She'll be our guest presenter on that date. So keep that in mind. Well, our next program will be next Wednesday, not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Real Talk with the G-Man prime time on Blog Talk Radio.
Okay, and yeah, so I just wanted to say,
Bedard's one of my guests. Bedard's one of my constant panelists. He's my permanent panelist.
well,
He's been a presenter. He's gonna be a presenter again real soon too.
Well, I just want you to do your take your time. And what is it, Rhonda Supreme and everybody.
Yeah. We're gonna get it together.
High, and
I will do that.
You take your time and keep pushing, brother.
And thanks for inviting me out this evening to be on your program. Always good to be with you.
Yes, sir, brother. Take
Talk
time.
to you later. God bless you. Bye-bye.
You too, brother.